people who is watching us from Colombia and other part of the world through the Facebook and YouTube Live. My name is Maria Gracia Batista. I'm the main coordinator of the Astronomical Observatory at Universidad de los Andes in Colombia. I'm very excited and very happy and of course very honored to be part of this Women Month film cycle, part of the cultural program organized by the US Embassy in Colombia. Today we have an amazing guest. She is the brain behind the film that we had the opportunity to watch a few days ago, and it's called Madame Mars. She is Jan Millsap. So hello, how are you, Jan?
Hi, I'm so glad to be here, and thank you to everybody that's making this possible.
Of course, Jan, and I'm very happy to have this opportunity to talk to you. And well, Jan, besides being a digital filmmaker, she's a fiction writer and a professor emerita in the cinema department at the San Francisco State University. Before we start, I would like to invite the people to watch this film, and it's still available for free until tonight. So you can find the info in the US Embassy social media. Please stay tuned with the conversatory and write all your questions in the comment box. Also remember, you can follow this conversatory through the Facebook Live in Spanish and through the YouTube channel in English. Well, Jan, I know you can share with the people a short fragment of Madame Mars, so why don't we start with it?
Is no longer earthbound. Man. 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 Man.
I think it's a great adventure, probably the greatest adventure of mankind, at least in our century.
Landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
That's one small step for man.
Man. Man. Man.
When I saw Neil Armstrong step foot on the moon, I said, wow, that's the potential of humanity, right? And us as a human race.
Hot summer night, July 1969. I'm out playing hide and go seek. Then I hear this voice calling me out of the wilderness.
Clear, how's it going?
I come in, a grainy image of this human walking on the moon.
Roger, the EVA is progressing beautifully.
And I can't believe what I'm seeing.
There seems to be no difficulty in moving around.
All that mattered was that one day I wanted to see my footprint on the moon.
Let me say this, we made a study in NASA while the Apollo program was still alive on how we would send a man to Mars with modern technology.
How about living?
Well, I tell you, Women's Lib will see to it that...
My first thoughts about Mars were in 1997 when I saw the pictures of the first Mars rover, the Sojourner rover, on the Dutch TV. For some reason that I cannot explain, I wanted to go to Mars.
Did you know about the female connection there? Did you know who Sojourner Truth was? Did you know about Donna Shirley, who designed the first rover?
No, I did not. This is news for me now.
So Jan, I really enjoyed it. Your film was very good to watch, but I had a few questions that came in my mind when I did it. And basically, the first of all will be like, when people watch it, what is the principal thing that you want them to keep in their minds?
Well, I think the main thing is, that there is a history here of women in Mars, of women in space. And unfortunately, it's not a history that most people are familiar with. And what I was able to present was just a small part of that history. For instance, the woman, Donna Shirley, who you saw briefly in this clip, was responsible for putting the first rover on Mars. But most people have never heard of her. So it's almost like, her situation amplified thousands of times because there are so many people, women included, that have contributed great things to space programs and space agencies all over the world. And to me, it's really important that we begin hearing stories from a wider group of people, including women.
Of course. And now that you talk about her, about Donna Shirley, in the 66, when she entered to the JPL, that is the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, she was the only woman among almost 2,000 male engineers. So currently, the proportion of women in the STEM areas is a little bit higher. So in your opinion, is this trend of women in the STEM areas getting better? Do we need to accelerate this process? Or do you feel that there is a resistance in the film about having women in the STEM areas?
Well, I feel like we certainly have made some progress. I don't think it's nearly enough. And one of the things that I kept thinking of when I was making this film is that, about the same time when the women's movement started in the early 70s was almost exactly the same time the human space program that NASA was running was winding down. That's the last time we went to the moon. That's the last time any human went farther than Earth orbit still. And so I thought, well, there's an odd disconnect there. Women are finally coming into some more power. They're searching out more opportunities. They're getting better education and job experience and all that. But there wasn't anywhere for them to go at that point because the space exploration, the human space exploration program had been cut back. But we were still doing remote exploration, like the rovers and the orbiters and the landers. So I think those became the new place to go for opportunities in space. But, if you look at the percentages, not just NASA and ESA, but in the private space sector as well, it's under 20% of women in the workforce. And if you go into the higher echelon of people who run the programs, it's even less. So I think we've still got a lot of work to do. And one of the reasons I wanted to make this film, while we were talking about sending humans back out into deep space, was that it seems like, it's time not only to advance ourselves technically and scientifically, it's time to advance ourselves culturally and as a society that values everybody's representation in space.
As a humankind, not only a gender, not only a nationality in specific, we are all a team that is being a human being. So going in that direction, something that also came in my mind was I could notice that all the women that you interview for this film were talking about or in terms of human being, a person, the humans, like in general. To me, that is one of the most iconic example of inclusive language. I'm sorry. So do you think this exercise that these women did during the interviews was something unconscious, or is kind of movement of talking like this, like all a team and including women and men?
It's probably a little bit of both, I think. I mean, these women are all really smart women, so they're smart enough not to refer to themselves as men, first of all. And I think the idea is that we are trying to develop a more gender neutral way to talk about space exploration, because as you saw in my clip, men on the moon, men in space, men, the manned, we still talk about manned missions. And even NASA, they're having a hard time changing everybody's habit of calling them manned missions. They tried crewed missions. That doesn't sound quite right. They tried piloted missions. They just haven't come up with the right term. But I think the women that I interviewed are all cognizant of the fact that we're humans first and gender second. So I think naturally women who aspire to or have achieved accomplishments in space and tech, I think they also see this as an endeavor that includes them. So why would they refer to themselves as anything other than humans doing the work?
Exactly. Totally agree with that. And actually, there was a quote that I really liked. That was, Mars needs women. Although I already say science needs women. For you, will be the most difficult mental border we need to overcome as a society?
Well, just to give you some background on that, that's Mars Needs Women is from an old science fiction film called Mars Needs Women. And the reason that Mars needed women in the film was because females on Mars had lost the ability to reproduce. So basically, it doesn't mean, Mars needs women to be scientists and explorers. It means we need women to have babies on Mars. It was a terrible movie, not just for that reason. But what did you ask me again? Mars Needs Women.
Yes, it was about the quote, because it says Mars needs women. For me, it will be like science
needs women. Yeah, okay.
Women.
And the biggest boundary for us to get there, I think it really is, we have to start way sooner in our society, in our schools, in our communities. We have to start way sooner making sure that all kids are exposed to science and tech, that they are encouraged, that they're given opportunities, and also that they see people who look like them. And that means that we have women teaching engineering courses and tech and science courses. We have women, who could become mentors or advisors or tutors, that the whole, really, the whole education system has to change. It really does, because it's not supportive enough for everybody, and it really needs to be.
Okay. So, Jen, before I move to the next question, I want to welcome all the people who is joining us right now. And we are right now with Jan Millsap. She is the director of the documentary called Madame Mars, and we are talking about the role of women in space exploration. Many people are joining. Let me get Luz Dari from Pereira, Leslie from Peru, and Daniela from Venezuela, Daniel from Bogota, and much more people that is connected with us. So Jen, I'm very happy doing this conversatory with you. And going on with this, what do you think will be the greatest quality that women can bring to science, besides the ability and the capacity for bringing children?
Okay. Well, it's not just about the training and the knowledge and even the application of the knowledge. I think it's kind of about bringing your whole self to whatever you're doing. And, if you're a professional scientist, what the most valuable thing you can bring is yourself, your passion, your motivation, your ability to work with other people and to inspire other people, especially young people. And I think that's probably the most important thing to bring.
Okay, nice. And of course, all this film and all the work that you did, of course, is about for being a window for women and the opportunity to be part of this special exploration. So for you, what does it mean to be a feminist? A feminist?
Okay, that's a big question. Okay, I'm old enough to have been around when the women's movement really got going in the 70s. So for me, I've been a feminist my whole adult life. And I think what it meant for me then, because I came out of a very, I would say, sheltered conservative upbringing, what it meant then and still does mean is that I was aware there were more opportunities for me than what I had been told. And I was aware that I had somehow the wherewithal or the means or the gumption or the nerve or whatever it took. I knew that there were I knew I could follow the path that I would choose for myself. And that was really important. And it really has kind of defined my whole adult life. And I think it's still the most important thing.
Excellent. And well, in your experience in the film industry, have you ever feel underestimated for being a woman because it's normally dominated by men?
Oh, constantly. Yeah. I didn't actually ever try to work in the commercial film industry. I think that women who do that are, they have to be extra tough to make it. So I more went into academia and teaching and making non-mainstream films, I guess you would call them. So I was able, then to I was able to make the films I wanted to make. But even in academia, it's still not an equal playing field. And one of the earlier universities I worked for, I ended up suing them for gender discrimination. So you just have to keep going, and if you encounter obstacles, you have to just do something about whatever the obstacle is so you can keep going. I mean, you just have to.
You did. You are a professor emerita. That's a big thing to say. And well, during the film, there was very common to hear that once we go to Mars, once we conquer Mars, we will be able to do this as opportunity for achieve the equality, between women and men, Mars exploration. So basically, should we really wait until conquer another planet to achieve this equality? Because I think not only, to have a plan B for the Earth, we need to do the plan A. We need to conquer that equality right now, not wait until Mars. But this is my point of view. So what do you think?
Well, I think you're right. And of course, there's a subtitle to the film. The film is called Madame Mars, but the subtitle is Women in the Quest for Worlds Beyond. Questing for worlds beyond is not just traveling to Mars or traveling to any other place in space. It's actually trying to think about a broader future wherever you are, however you are. And I think that one of the things that I learned through making this film is a lot of people, when you talk to people about going to the moon, going to Mars, even if that's their job, even if that's their commitment, they still want to fix things on Earth first. It's not all about finding another planet. And then I think the second thing is, if we do move, as a lot of humans, to Mars, what do we do with Mars? Because if we just turn it into another Earth, that's not going to be so great. So in a way, Mars is kind of a blank slate. And once humans start traveling there, visiting, living, there are going to be a lot of decisions to make in terms of how we live with each other, how we conduct ourselves, who does what. Are there any limitations on anybody for any reason? And if they're able to do something, can they do it? So I think it will be really interesting to see how humans do inhabit another planet. And I know Musk is all about occupy Mars. Well, it's not about occupying. It's about living on the planet, living with the planet, living with the other people who are on the planet. And
start with the right foot.
Yes. So I think there's a lot to think about there. And then one third thing I'll say is that once we get to Mars, we're going to have to solve a lot of problems on Mars. It's a very hostile environment. But there's also the opportunity that what we learn about living on Mars, we can transport back to Earth. So that humans living on Mars may also be able to affect improvements on Earth, which would be really cool.
Nice. I really agree with all your point of view about this. And besides that, I would like to thank to everyone who is watching, especially to Bernardina, that says, thanks for this space and make us stronger. Laura Marcelas also says, congratulations, Jan and Maria, for inspiring us and making these great women in science visible. Thank you for all your comments. Please leave any questions, any woman that you want me to ask to Jan. This is the space, this is the moment for this. So waiting for the next questions and the other comments from the public, I would like to ask you something that is not related specifically with the film, but it's still about your point of view about feminism, and it's equal opportunities for women and men. Of course, is the main goal. So, do you believe that in the process of competition for a job, for a space mission or something like that, when you want to hire someone, basically, should that include a picture or something that makes you sure the gender, or should be like a number or a specific jobs for women and men? Like if you have two jobs, you need to a woman and a man, or I don't care the gender, I just need for meritocracy to conquer, to get the jump to someone.
Well, that's another big question. Let's see. Well, you know what? You never know the people making the decision about hiring someone. You never know where they're coming from. You just don't. And we have policies in place. We have affirmative action policies in some parts of the world and other hiring guidelines. And there have been a lot of efforts to educate and inform the people that make hiring decisions, that how to do this fairly for everyone. But I don't think it's something you can yet count on 100%. So in a way, you have to keep in mind because I was chair of my department for a while, and I had to make hiring decisions in terms of faculty and staff. And, you have to keep in mind that you are looking for the most qualified person, but you have to also keep in mind that, what you want the people you work with to represent. And, it's almost like you have to go a few extra steps still to ensure that you have the most representative group of people working together that still are the best qualified. So, that it's kind of like a little sweet spot. You've got to find the most qualified person that also helps you meet your goals in terms of being fully representative. And it's not easy to do. And I'm actually really glad we have policies in place, and I'm glad we have, as training opportunities for people to learn how to deal with other genders in the workplace and all of that, because I think we still need that extra help. We're still not there. And it's almost like I would like to see pictures of the applicants, so I could hire more women and minorities. That would be good for
You
me.
want to be sure that you
Yes,
are
yeah.
filling up the gap.
Right.
Okay, good enough. And basically, during the interviews, what was the most frequent feeling that you have knowing these women?
Wow. Okay. Well, I talked to a lot of different women in different who are in different kinds of situations, and I think one thing you go into an interview knowing what you want to get from that person. You think you've done your research, you've got your questions prepared, and I think the thing that I felt over and over and over was when I would ask a question and get a good answer, a really good answer, but in my head I was saying, say more, be
Something
more.
is missing.
Yes, you keep, step beyond your comfort level. Just say some outrageous things. And one of the things I think I learned is that people who were currently employed were less likely to be in any way negative or critical, whereas people that we either were independently working or were retired and didn't have to obey any rules, they were able to speak much more freely. So I realized that, even though if you're working for a major space agency, you may have feminist values, you may be less comfortable expressing them. And so I think I just wanted everybody to take it a step further.
Talking about that, well, socially, by preconception, it's expected that women to be, like pretty. They are normally finding to be like fragile, like they are expected to be capable of do a lot of things without complaining. So one thing that I could notice from most of these women, what about some of them have the tendency, the trend to look like less feminine. Actually, they were like kind of disagree about the beauty contest and all the things that happen in some cases. So do you think that sometimes they try to do like less feminine to be treated like more equal?
Well, it's like if you want to join the boys club, you have to be a boy. I mean, it's I think that's part of the mindset, and that it's a valid approach, because if you want to make it in a man's world, you've got to kind of duplicate what the men are doing, and maybe that involves acting like a man, even dressing like a man, blah blah blah. That's one approach. I think the other approach, which is equally valid, is just to insist on being yourself. And if you don't get what you want, then you just have to insist more. It's just that you don't stop trying, but you find a way. It's not like every one of these women in the film, that's found her way to some interesting life, related to Mars in some way, or related to space. And it's almost like there's not a formula. There's not a way that you get there. It's like every one of these women had to find her own way. And so there's almost as many ways as there are women. And so there's not just one way to do it. And it's certainly not, feeling like you have to be like a guy to get there.
Actually, when I decide to be a scientist, when I decide to be a physicist, one of the things that my mom was really worried about is about, don't be feminine. Like, no, you will be like, with your hair like mess up all the time, and you won't use the makeup. And no, I'm not going to quit that, because there is no relationship between the intelligence, between what I'm going to do and how I'm look like, because I want to show the world that you can, be feminine in whatever style do I have and still do a great job. But I could tell in the film that this is weird. Normally they try to fit in this man kind of style. So talking about this situation between women and men, and specifically about the Artemis mission that NASA is going on. Do you really think that is necessary, or is it just about publicity that, yeah, we are going back to the moon with a woman? So this is really necessary, or is more about an historical retribution for women?
Well, I don't know if it's necessary so much, but it is important. I think it's really important to acknowledge the fact that it's way beyond time to send women, now that we're going to go to another world again after 40 some years of not going anywhere, that it's super duper important that women be represented in this mission and in all future off-world missions.
Excellent. Well, Jan, we are about to finish this part of the interview with my questions only. But before we do that, if you could encompass the film in one word, what would it be?
I would say opportunity. And I mean, finding opportunities, making opportunities, enjoying opportunities, but yeah, opportunities.
Okay. And beyond the number of people that will be able to watch this film, what will be your personal indicator that this was successful?
That the film is successful?
Yes, but yeah. For you.
Oh, for me. Okay. Well, I think that the film has been successful way beyond anything I envisioned when I was making the film. But I think the other thing that happened as a result of making the film is that I have really met so many people all over the world, especially women involved in the space arena in their countries. And I was invited to show the film at the United Nations, as that's where it had its premiere. And at that point, I met so many women from all over the world, and we have continued to work together. We have a very strong global network. We call it Space for Women. And we do initiatives. This is mission control for one of the projects that we're working on right now, which is a STEM initiative for young people, in which they take a simulated trip to Mars and solve a problem related to living on Mars that also helps people on Earth. So, and I wouldn't have met any of these women and gotten involved in any of these projects if I hadn't made the film. And then the other thing is that for many years, I also just kept the newsletter going, because I realized in the film, I told a limited number of stories. And after I finished the film, I kept meeting other women who had equally wonderful stories. So I would put them in the newsletter, so I would do an interview with a woman for the newsletter, and women working on, space suits that repel dust, which would be great for Mars, or working on nutritious meals that have a shelf life of 5 years, that would be great on Mars. So I feel like the film enabled me to become aware that there are so many other stories out there, and that I want to keep connecting with those women and hearing their stories as well.
You did it in an awesome way, in a film that is really enjoyable, and I really encourage the people to watch this film and still have this opportunity, so don't miss it. Also, I would like to say hello to all the people that is joining from Colombia, Venezuela, Argentina, and Panama. I want to welcome to you for this conversation with Jan Millsap. She is the director of the film Madame Mars, and the first of the series of talk and film screening that is doing the U.S. Embassy in Colombia, and is organizing the honor of Women's Month. Victor is making a question. He's part of the audience, and he says, what other project is Jan working on right now? And if there are other documentaries or films project you are preparing.
Okay, thank you for that question. I am putting a new film together. It's a little bit broader. It's called Otherworldliness, and it's about, how not only how we get to other worlds, but how we conceive of other worlds. And is it something we have to experience physically? Can we do it virtually? Can we do it from our easy chair in our living room? But then the other thing that it looks at is how all of the opportunities to experience other worlds are still kind of bound by some traditions that still exclude people. Like people in developing countries may not have all the virtual tools, like if you want to do a virtual trip to Mars or something. So it's also looking at who are the haves and who are the have-nots in terms of being able to experience other worlds. So thank you. I'm trying to, I've had 2 great interviews so far. I interviewed Jill Tarter, who's the head of SETI, which is the search for extraterrestrial intelligence in the universe. And she was just wonderful. And then I was in Cambridge a couple of years ago to show my film. And I was able to interview Sir Martin Rees, who is the Queen's astronomer. So that was pretty, do you know Sir Martin Rees?
Yes.
Yes, he's written a bunch of books. He was so gracious and so wonderful. But he's one of the people that thinks we have to fix the Earth. He's not so much, gung-ho about inhabiting other worlds. He really thinks we have to take care of the one we have now.
Absolutely. And here we have another comment from the audience, coming from Sergio. He says, do you see a very promising future for women in the film industry? What about science?
Okay, so futures for women in film and science. Yeah, I actually do. I think certainly the film industry has gone through a lot of changes. I think the fact that we have less expensive equipment, that we have tools that people can make films on their desktop now. If we can just get those tools into everybody's hands, then everybody
even
has
with cell phones.
Yes, and even making films on cell phones. Yeah, all of this stuff is making filmmaking more accessible. I think at the same time, science, when you think about everything that's available on the internet, I mean, you can't believe everything that's on the internet, but there's access to a lot of stuff on the internet. So if you're interested in science,
you shouldn't believe everything you find on the internet.
No, but if you have an interest in a scientific area, like geology, there's nothing to stop you from learning everything that's possible to learn about it, because if you have the connection, and not everybody in the world does, but if you have the connection, you can find out a lot of stuff, and then that becomes part of your knowledge base, and you can move forward, I guess, in terms of pursuing a career.
Of course. And here we have a couple of comments. Here is coming from Guillermo. He says, I congratulate this courageous woman, fully capable of playing technical, scientific, and wonderfully creative roles with being and retaining their femininity, beauty, and tenacity, not like us men who barely shower before going to work. So brave, tough, but sensitive, determined, but cautious. So thank you, Guillermo, for your comment. Thank you for looking at us like this. And so what do you think about this, Jan?
Well, it made me think of what you said earlier, Maria, about, how your mother still wanted you to fix yourself up and look good, even though you were going to be a scientist, and that men don't have to. The guy Guillermo who just made the comment said, men don't even shower before they go to work. So maybe we need to move it both ways. Maybe the men need to fix themselves up a little more.
And we need to relax a little bit.
Yes.
Because sometimes the femininity takes a long time, and we are always worried about how the world is going to look at us. So we are just, human being after all. Nice. Well, another comment from the audience says, Jan mentioned that the exploration of Mars was not really about occupying or conquering, but rather coexisting in the universe with others. In space exploration, still too closely related to the very masculine history of space competition. So do you think it's still the prevalent idea of a space exploration for most of people?
Well, I don't know whose comment that was, but it was very astute and right on, spot on. I think what we're holding on to kind of an old-fashioned space culture, and that really, because the first space age really did grow out of the military and the conflict that was the Second World War, and our first rockets, that came from the Germans, and then the Soviets then had some rockets and they reverse engineered and made their own rockets. And then the Americans got Werner von Braun and some of the other engineers from Germany. And so they started making their own rockets. And before you knew it, there was a huge race to get into space, and it was all about winning. And I think that once you could say America won because they got to the moon first, but I don't necessarily agree with that, because so many of the other first in space were really Soviet accomplishments. So America says we won, but beyond that, it's like we haven't given up on that. And so now we're kind of in another whole space race. And now it's not only the national space agencies, it's the commercial. And it's fueled by huge amounts of money that NASA doesn't have and ESA doesn't have. And if you have the money, you have the attitude sometimes that you can do whatever you want. So, whoever is going to get us to Mars first is going to then maybe, presumably, be able to say, well, how's it going to be on Mars? I don't necessarily think that it's going to work out that way, but I think that certainly is the culture. And it's the same culture that fueled the first space age, which is competition, and especially competition among men and their big old rockets.
Exactly. And well, this is interesting. We have a question for a 8 years old girl. And it says, if in your film you talk about Mars, so would you live to visit it? Will you visit it? Or if you have the opportunity, would you like to visit it?
Yeah, I would. I don't know if you heard about, a couple of years back, there was an organization called Mars One. And it was very controversial because they were going to send 4 humans to Mars on a one-way trip. They would never come back. Exactly. And I applied, and because nobody had ever, the only criteria for applying was you had to be at least 18 years old. Well, nobody else had ever offered me an opportunity to go into space, so I thought, why not? And I applied. And I made it through the first round, and then you had your interview, and the whole thing finally fizzled because they didn't have enough money to do it. But I think at that point, which was maybe about 10 years ago, I would certainly have seriously considered it. I think at this point, I'm happy to sit back and do it virtually, and let other people go on to Mars. But yeah, I did have that moment where I thought, yeah, I want to go to Mars. I want to live there, and I'll probably be the first person to die there because I'm so old. But I still wanted to go. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Jan, in this kind of virtual events, the time flies. So we are basically run out of time. But I would like to thank you for this opportunity, this conversatory. Also, I would like to thank to the U.S. Embassy here in Colombia for organizing this space, this Women's Month film cycle that they are doing, the cultural program. And of course, to all the people that have following us through the social media, through the Facebook Live and the YouTube channel. So please try to find the time for watching this film. It's still available for free until tonight. Remember, you can find the info from the U.S. Embassy social media. Please.
Yes, I just want to jump in also and say thank you to everybody who was a part of this event, the audience or the people who made it happen. Maria Gracia, you were fantastic, and I wish you so much success in your life. I really enjoyed talking to you. And everybody, this is like the first day of Women's History Month, so everybody have a great month and think about women and their contributions.
Absolutely, I have been just such an honor, such a mind-blowing opportunity to meet you, Jan, to be here, part of this U.S. Embassy in Colombia activity. So thank you very much. Thank you for be part of this. And I'm looking forward to knowing more films and more jobs that you're going to do. So thank you very much for all the audience and all the people. And thank you, Jan.
Thank you.